We're glad you're watching KTN Prime.
Right now, Kisumu Senator Professor Anyang' Nyong'o is back to his teaching profession after more than 2 decades. The political science professor found himself an enemy of the system when he and other academics joined the push for multipartism and the demands for a new constitution. KTN's Sharon Momanyi attended Nyong'o's lecture at the university.
And in one 5th floor office, a lecturer is also getting ready for his class. The lecturer, none other than Kisumu Senator Professor Anyang' Nyong'o.
East Africa.
Professor Nyong'o has resumed lecturing, having taught political science at the school over 20 years ago.
It feels good, it's home. I think I like it.
One would wonder, after spending more than 2 decades out of the teaching profession and in active politics, why go back to class now?
If you're an academic, you should keep your mind occupied with academic work. It's not strange, really. In the U.S., people do it a lot. You have senators, congressmen, teaching at areas of their competence. Wanted a collective approach.
He is not quitting politics just yet. The former Minister of Planning and Medical Services has published several books and articles on democracy, democratization, the state, and politics of development in Africa. It is this thirst for democracy, he says, that spurred him into active politics.
It was our responsibility, really, because we had written about this, we had talked about this, we had suffered for it, and we felt that we should now translate what we had been struggling for into practice.
His is a small class of about 20 students. The course he is currently teaching is Inter-African Relations, part of the Graduate International Relations program at the University of Nairobi. For Enoch Omondi, one of Nyong'o's students, being taught by the senator has tremendous sparks.
Taking us through the Inter-African relations is an area where he's so much qualified. He's so much has a very, very large experience in inter-African relations, having worked in different consultancies all over Africa.
It's affecting Ethiopia, it's affecting Kenya.
A renowned scholar, Professor Nyong'o has previously taught at the University of Nairobi, El Colegio de Mexico, and Addis Ababa University, later joining the African Academy of Sciences as the head of programs from 1987 to 1992. He has been recognized for his contribution to scholarship and democratization, receiving a German African Award in 1995. Now back in class and having to serve both the country and the classroom, don't these two contexts run in parallel? I ask.
A lot of things that we do in Parliament are relevant to students, especially graduate students, because you will be teaching them from the practical point of view.
He manages to separate his political clout when he comes to class and is an amazing lecturer.
Though exiting his position as the Secretary General for the ODM party, Nyong'o says his political career continues. With imparting knowledge a demonstrated passion, this he has to do while sparing a hand for the blackboard. Sharon Momanyi, KTN.
The state today withdrew robbery with violence and terrorism charges against 33 suspects arrested during the raid at Masjid Musa Mosque on February the 2nd. They have, however, been slapped with stringent conditions, including having to report to the CID offices every Wednesday. They also have to stay out of trouble because the Criminal Procedure Code under which they were set free indicates that they could be rearrested and charged when the state gathers enough evidence to prosecute them. Those freed include 3 female suspects and males aged under 20 years or slightly above. 71 suspects are still in custody. Police stormed the mosque 2 Sundays ago to stop what they described as an outlawed jihadist convention.
So that application is allowed. All the 33 accused persons herein are discharged under Section 87A. That is our resident. Okay, court will rise.
Let's stay on the war on terror now. In an effort to stem the radicalization tide that is slowly sweeping Mombasa County, the government now plans to vet teachers and visiting clerics. The Interior Ministry says teachers in public schools will be vetted, institutions carrying out religious studies scrutinized before being licensed. The Interior Principal Secretary spoke to KTN's Dennis Onsarigo.
Mr. Iringo, is the national government worried about what appears to be rising cases of religious extremism in the coastal town of Mombasa?
Of course, this problem is closely related to the terrorist threat. It's closely related. These are not just youths, normal youths, who are maybe agitating for change in the mosques. These are youths who are ready to kill. The kind of teachings that they are propagating are untoward and social and against the norms of any right-thinking member of society or against the norms of society.
I have spoken to persons affected. I've spoken to children who were arrested and later released from Masjid Musa Mosque in Mombasa, and the feeling among them is that they're being victimized by the state. What is your comment on this?
We are not reading any mosque at all, but anybody who perpetrates crime and seeks sanctuary either in a church or a mosque will be dealt with accordingly, like a common criminal. Because if a thief enters a church, you pursue him into the pulpit and get him out. Similarly, if a youth tries to hide in the mosque, you eject him and deal with him accordingly. If he's carrying weapons, you'll be dealt with the appropriate force.
Are we only likely to see a security approach to these issues in Mombasa, or the government is exploring some other avenues in dealing with this menace?
Some institutions out there are being used to radicalize the youth. So whoever is the teachers of madrasa, those who are teaching madrasa, will be vetted, and preachers who come to Kenya from other countries will also be vetted to ensure that we do not admit anybody who is likely to come and radicalize the youth.
The Court of Appeal judges Roslyn Nambuye, Daniel Musinga and David Maraga are pleading with the parties involved in the digital migration case to find an out-of-court settlement. Tomorrow is the last day for submissions before the three judges make a ruling on the matter. Fred Ngatia, who was representing GoTV, an affiliate of MultiChoice Kenya, maintains that the administrative process of digital migration was inclusive and transparent. Speaking on behalf of the Communications Commission of Kenya, lawyer Kilonzo Ambua said regional security is dependent on Kenya's digital migration. He said the country signed an agreement with Uganda and Tanzania that forces the three countries to make the digital crossover, failure to which it will strain the tripartite relationship. Three media houses, our Standard Group, Nation Media Group, and the Royal Media Services, want the date for the digital migration pushed back.
Right, now the Transform Kenya Awards have finally reached the home stretch. This morning, a Standard Media Group CEO, Sam Chalet, officially handed over the entries to knowledge partner Riara University. Upon receiving the entries, the university's Vice-Chancellor, Kiari Mwara, said that the vetting team that will begin its work next week consists of senior lecturers and officials from the Standard Group. The vetting team is set to select 15 finalists to be awarded come next month.
We've been very successful. There were 24,200 entries that were received. However, when we've looked at what we've seen, there are 3,003 unique nominees. And this would be institutions, this would be individuals that are seen by the communities that they operate in to have gone out of their way over the last many years to transform those communities.
These awards are very important because they seek to recognize people who are making a difference in their communities. These could be people who are making a difference in the areas of agriculture, manufacturing, arts and culture, education, civil society, and these are the unsung heroes who really go about their work in most cases without getting the kind of recognition that we are going to be giving them.
The data as a national outlook, it's countrywide, and it reflects actually more or less what has been the main theme for this campaign, just to identify people who have really transformed. We are looking at transformation here in terms of transformation as to being very innovative, transformation as to quality of life, transformation in terms of what something is being done slightly different from the way it is really coming out.
Well, it's time for Money Matters now, and Edith Kimani is in our business studio, but with what could be some bad news for the Kenyan economy. Good evening, Edith.
Good evening. Well, it's actually a tale of two things here. We're going to open with bad news, as you mentioned. The cost of taking a loan will increase for you. We have the details. And towards the end, I'll be telling you how even as a low-income earner, you can take life insurance. That's coming your way shortly after this break. I'm Edith Kimani. Let me now take you through the business. Now, hopes of a double-digit growth for the Kenyan government could hit a snag with the cost of loans in the market projected to go up. Adelaide Changole explains.
The cost of loans in Kenya's financial markets has remained relatively high, even with a substantial hold in the benchmark rate by the regulator at 8.5%. However, with the rate of inflation expected to go up, analysts predict another round of high cost of borrowings.
Food price pressures are starting to emerge in the region once again. We see this more clearly in some inflation indices than others.
The problem emanates from climate-related shocks that have impacted heavily on the country's agricultural sector. Moreover, the country's poor food distribution system has also contributed to the current state of affairs by creating artificial shortages even when there is adequate food.
There's something wrong with the Kenyan model, where food should be so much cheaper than it is globally, and for one reason or another, maybe to do with infrastructure, the setup of agriculture, it isn't happening.
Already, this increase is becoming evident, with data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics showing that inflation rose from 7.15% in December to 7.21% in January. This prediction holds that it could hit the double digits in another 4 months, and the result being an upward review of the benchmark lending rate.
Middle of the year, the central bank will have to be tightening again, just to keep policy as accommodative as it is in real terms, but not to increase the pace of accommodation as inflation is picking up.
The net impact of this will be a growing economy unable to expand as the cost of borrowing goes out of the reach of many. This is likely to stifle growth across most sectors.
You generally unleash a much bigger wave of growth because people who generally are not at the forefront of the urbanization process, if they can see their incomes being lifted too, then the multiplier effect that has is much more important.
An increase in inflation will not only hurt consumers by increasing the price of basic commodities, it will also hurt small and medium-sized enterprises by increasing the cost of credit. And this could impact negatively on the government's plans to grow the economy at double digits this financial year. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Well, speaking of the national kitty, the National Treasury will be making a pitch to Parliament for 121.8 billion shillings. That's for the supplementary budget. This, it says, will be dedicated to priority areas of salaries, expenditure, ongoing and new projects. Michael Karanja has the details.
The 2013-2014 financial year budget presented last June was the highest in Kenya's history. Estimated at 1.65 trillion shillings, the financing captured funds for both recurrent and development expenditure, as well as allocations to county governments. And as is the tradition, Treasury presented its supplementary budget to Parliament to enable it meet its obligations. In the reviewed figures by Treasury, the recurrent expenditure has shot up to 665.4 billion shillings from the approved 610.6 billion shillings. The development expenditure has been docked 10.5 billion shillings, bringing it down to 431.2 billion from an earlier estimate of 441.7 billion shillings. According to Treasury, it received supplementary requests estimated at 356.8 billion shillings. However, this had to be rationalized to the approved 121.8 billion shillings, which it presented in the supplementary budget. This saw new and ongoing projects allocated some 93 billion shillings, while salary-related expenditures were reviewed to 16 billion shillings from the 39 billion shillings requested. Operations and maintenance has been reviewed to 12.7 billion shillings. But it is not all bad news. The government actually anticipates saving some money. How is it going to do that? Treasury anticipates that not all the money allocated to development projects is going to be utilized. So Treasury is going to be using strategic intervention to create a saving of about 29 billion shillings. But apart from the savings realized on the projects, Treasury also submitted that the burden of the raising wage bill had put pressure on the government, forcing the government to freeze new hiring as well as restructuring of parastatals. To deal with these challenges, Treasury will be proposing further borrowings and budget rationalization measures to close the financing gap. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
Several companies have already placed interest to snap up beleaguered flour firm Karturi Limited, which has gone under. Philip Keitani has the details of the flour firm that has wilted just days before the much celebrated Valentine's Day.
The fate of these 3,000 workers at Kenya's largest flour farm hangs in the balance. Their employer Karuturi Limited is in the red.
Hakuna mtoto ameenda shule, especially wale wamefanya class 8 wote wako kwa manyumba.
According to the workers, CFC Bank took over the running of the Naivasha-based flour farm on Monday morning, with Karen Day and Ian Small of Business Advisory Group being appointed as receiver managers.
Karuturi alipochukua shamba alilipwa miaka yetu. Ndio? Na mwenye anachukua shamba saa hii miaka yetu lazima tupe.
In the greenhouses, the wilt in the company is visible as blooming flowers remain uncollected. Karuturi's precious record of producing over 1 million stems a day now gone to zero. The company has been struggling to make ends meet. Suppliers and employers have gone for months without pay, coupled with a tax evasion case in court. The future has wilted on Karuturi's flowers.
Kwa hivyo nauliza serikali ingilie hii maneno, ikuje on the ground. Rais, nilikuwa nimekuambia hii kabla ukue rais, nilikuwa nimeintervene hii maneno na tumetuma wazee kwako, angalia hii watu yako.
In a statement to Newsroom, the receiver manager indicated that they will be spending time analyzing records to assess the company's debt level. More recently, KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli petitioned President Uhuru Kenyatta to come to the aid of the workers who have spent months without pay. The coming on board of receiver managers now brings to an end the dahlias that the flour farm has experienced only a few years after it changed its name from Shah Agencies. Philip Keitan, KTN Business.
Well, let's end this bulletin on a good note. And low-income earners living in peri-urban and rural areas will now enjoy the privileges of life insurance. This follows a partnership between Jubilee Insurance, Citadel Microfinance and Umande Trust to introduce Tumaini ya Maisha life insurance cover. Now, the cover is a bundle product against risks of fire, disability and funeral, with annual premium rates of between 450 shillings and 4,500 shillings payable through mobile money platforms. The partners seek to also enable 97% of Kenyan populations without insurance cover to access quality and affordable life, health and education. The partners added that though life insurance coverage in Kenya remains dismally low, they intend to work closely to drive higher uptake of the product. Remember, you can log on to our website, www.standardmedia.co.ke, to get more details of these stories. Let's now have a look at our financials report. Well, my name is Edith Kimani. That's it from the business desk. Lynn Washiri is standing by with the sports. But before that, let me hand you back over to Wilson Buru.
Thank you very much, Edith, for that. Let's now recap our top story tonight. And we began with what turned out to be a happy ending to a very sad story we aired last week. It was a sweet reunion for a mother and her child 2 weeks after her newborn baby was stolen right after delivery. The residents of Seme in Kisumu County mounted what they called the mother of all searches to find the baby. The baby was found in Sunga village in Seme and a woman arrested. The suspect claimed that she paid someone at the Kombewa hospital 15,000 shillings to help her take away the baby from the hospital. The suspect will be arraigned in court tomorrow.
Right, and let's remind you tonight of our big question. We're asking you, do you support the court petition to stop the use of alcohol on the roads? Do you support the court petition to stop the use of alcohol? A case has been filed in court by former legislator Gitobu Imanyara. Let's take a look at some of your comments tonight. Hassan Salim Moody on Twitter, you say, no, alcohol has really helped in reducing careless driving. Those opposing it are anti-Mutudo.
There's a yes here from, but it has no name, and it says, yes, it's colonial. I don't know what that means. There's another yes here, a more serious yes, and it's from Frederick Matsal from Lavington Parkfield School in Kitengela. It says, yes, alcohol is a health hazard. It can spread a multi-drug resistant TB strain.
Here's another one from David Onyango. No, alcohol should be a permanent thing in our lives because Kenyans cannot tame their appetite for liquor. Keep your comments coming in. We will continue to sample them. And of course, the poll result is coming at the end of our bulletin. But first, let's go to the sports news tonight. Lynn Washira is in our sports studio. Lynn, good to see you today. What do you have for us tonight?
Good to see you too, Yvonne. By the way, this Saturday, Mo Farah might be in Nairobi. He's been invited to take part in the Africa cross-country trials that will be held at the Uhuru Gardens. So if you're interested in meeting this icon, who is a British two-time world champion, you might as well be at the Uhuru Gardens. These and more stories coming up right after a short break. Don't go too far. A very good evening and a warm welcome to KTN Sports Today. I'm Lynn Washira. Putting up a sports laboratory in Kenya is an expensive affair. Those are the words from Sports Cabinet Secretary Dr. Hassan Wario, who's responding to questions on the government's ability to aid in breaking the long cycle of dependence on South Africa to test athletes' blood samples in the war against doping. The World Anti-Doping Agency representatives are in the country on a fact-finding mission. Since Kenya found herself at the center of global attention following a series of accusations that doping is widespread among her athletes, there have been calls for the government to invest in a laboratory to ease and speed the testing process locally. However, that dream will remain just that, a dream. While pledging the government support to the cause, Sports Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario expressed concerns about its expense.
And the mathematics is mainly around how much does it cost us anyway to do the test in South Africa. Is that cheaper than setting up your own facility, which may become dormant, which may not, say, meet the 3,000, and then it becomes, a dormant facility?
Currently, Kenya relies on South Africa to test blood samples. In Kenya's fight against cheating, Dr. Wario said a Kenya anti-doping agency will be set up by March this year.
It's not only just testing blood, it's also investigating the entire context in which the athletes exist. And this context involves so many things. They're agents that we don't even know how they come into this country. Are they properly certified? What are they doing to our young men and women? What are they giving them?
I think from WADA side, we will wait for the report from the task force and from the government of Kenya, which I'm sure they will make available as soon as.
Wario disputed claims that the Moni Wekesa-led task force on anti-doping has been grounded following lack of funding.
Now, of the 23 successful days, what I can tell you is that we have visited Nairobi, Mombasa, Elgeyo Marakwet, Eldoret, Kapsabet, Kisumu, Kakamega.
The task force is expected to hand over its report next month. Kenya Volleyball Federation put the blame squarely on the government after the national men's team failed to qualify for the World Championships in Poland later in the year. Though Kenya won her last match on Monday, the points ratio favored Egypt, who now become one of the 3 African teams to qualify. But on the flip side, the technical bench believes the qualifier was a learning curve for the boys who have been in the shadows of the women's team for a long time. Hassan Juma with the reports.
By the time Kenya came up against Botswana in her last match of the Volleyball World Cup qualifier, the team was merely playing for pride, since Egypt had already secured Pool U ticket by convincingly winning their final match. Though Kenya failed to secure the ticket, the team takes pride in the fact that they had never reached the level they did in the qualifier. And more so given the prevailing conditions.
You're still making some mistakes that you should not be making at this level.
The inception is the big problem that brought all this failure.
Do you feel there's goodwill from the government?
The government can do much, much better, and they need to see what is happening in other countries, like in Botswana, like in Rwanda, because in third world countries or in developing countries where the corporate sector is not very keen on supporting youth activities, the government has an obligation to step in.
The men's team may have lost, but the Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers in March is where attention will soon shift to. The Feminine World Cup qualifier starts in Nairobi on Sunday.
It calls for a proper training plan and programs, youth programs, if we have to match the countries like Egypt.
Well, it's back to the drawing board for the men's volleyball team after they missed out of representing their country in the World Championships in Poland. And the onus is now on all stakeholders to make sure that they find lasting solutions to this dismal show. Reporting for KTN from the Moi Sports Center, Kasarani Gymnasium, I'm Hassan Juma.
British double world and Olympic champion Mo Farah has been invited for this weekend's National Cross-Country Championships come IAAF permit meeting. However, the organizers say Farah is yet to confirm participation. Kenya will use the championships to select her squad for the Africa Cross-Country Championships set for March 16th in Kampala, Uganda.
Athletes from the East African region have always held Kenyan competition in high esteem due to its competitive nature. The 2014 National Cross Country Championship is no different. Organizers of the one-day competition expect 12 athletes from different countries, amongst them Bahrain, Ethiopia, Eritrea and Uganda. Athletics Kenya did not give specific names of those expected, but admitted it will help offer quality competition.
You are also going to watch, of course, these foreign runners come to run here. It's a very exciting time for us in Athletics Kenya to see that we have at least countries and athletes accept to come and run here.
Foreign athletes are coming, and I think the names you have received are the names that are known worldwide, and they'll give our athletes a run for their money.
The national trials bring together athletes who excelled during the national series. AK will use the event to pick a team for the African Cross Country Championship set for Kampala, Uganda in March.
So it's going to be very competitive, and we hope through that we are going to select a very strong team for Kampala.
Athletics Kenya official received 12 million shillings sponsorship from Kenya Commercial Bank to aid in organizing the event. Moses Wahisi, KTN Sports.